Hey everyone, it's Chris Tilley from Pantaenius Sail and Motor Yacht Insurance, down here today with Brian Gatt from MPS Marine Protection Systems. We're on board the Pantaenius Rib. Brian, do's and don'ts with ribs. Similar to other boats, what can you tell us about ribs and tenders in general?
Okay, so essentially a rib is a rubber inflatable boat. It's got either an aluminium or fiberglass construction hull, and it's got essentially tubes, either Hypalon or PVC attached to the hull itself. Now, the tubes are a potential hazard if you potentially pop them, scrape them, put a hook into them or whatever else. But if you well look after them, they'll last a very long time. Now, rubber inflatable boats, like any material, needs to look after, so due care is required looking after them. Unfortunately, the UV does attack all materials, including the glues that help it attach to the hull. General cleaning is required. They typically also don't like harsh chemicals like fuel and other acids and vice versa. So keeping tubes well clean and looked after will make you see happy boating for a long time.
So similar with other boats, Brian, pre-purchase survey, something that you recommend with ribs?
Oh yes, highly recommend to have the ribs pre-purchase inspected by, there's quite a number of rubber ducky or rib repair guys around the countryside. If you buy a rib that's potentially got failing tubes, the cost of replacement tubes can be quite expensive, and trust me, I've been there. So you want to make sure you're buying a rib that's going to be suitable and not going to cost you more to replace your tubes than what the actual vessel is actually worth. Care and maintenance is always required. Always recommend to get a survey done and regular checks, and ensure that you know how to repair these ribs in the case of an emergency. But for starters, if there is a leak or if there is a problem with the tubes falling off the hull in any way, from seams letting go, handles, glues, or a leak, don't use a rubber ducky. It's really important to make sure that the tubes are intact and working properly before you go to use them.
So Brian, to summarize, your 3 top tips before enjoying a day on the water.
Okay, tip number 1, make sure the integrity of the hull and the engine and all the componentry are all operational. Step 2, test and check all that equipment. So run your engines, check all your nav gear, lighting equipment, engine controls. And step number 3 is probably one of the most important things, is the safety equipment. Make sure there's enough life jackets on board for you and your passengers. Make sure you've got enough water. Make sure you've got your V-sheets, your flares, and everything else required to go.
All very important information and things to remember to enjoy a safe and enjoyable day out on the water. Thank you very much, Brian. Brian from MPS Marine Protection Systems, Chris from Pantaenius Sail and Motor Yacht Insurance. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.